So in this video, we're going to carry on with this same trisection of the 90 degree, and we're going to create a whole bunch more angles. So first up, I'm going to start with the 90. I'm going to cut that in half, right? So I have point C here, and then this point here, which intersects the 90. Let's call this F, right? So basically, if I want to cut this 90 in half, you got to imagine, you don't have to draw this in every time, but you have to imagine that between this angle, C and F in this case, you have a straight line that you want to bisect. So what you have to do is take your compass, set it up to some reasonable radius. Again, you're going to want to set it up, so if I set the compass point on F, I want to go about 3/4 of the way to C, the points that I want to bisect. So I want to cut 90 and 0 in half to create 45. So if I set my compass up on F, I want to get about 3/4 of the way to C, right? And then from F, just get right on the point there, just sliding it off. So now I'm on the point, I draw an arc about where I think 45 is going to hit, and then I come down from C and I draw that same arc through, right, using the same radius. Now, if I connect from the center A and connect through, didn't hit my mark perfectly there, but that will be a 45-degree angle. I have cut from 0 to 90 in half by this imaginary line that is equidistant from A. AC is the same distance as AF. So I cut that in half by using points F and C to create these arcs, which are a perfect bisection from A through, which gives me 45 degrees because I cut 90 in half. So if I want to go one farther than that, and let's say I want to cut and create a 22.5 degree angle, well, we know that 22.5 degrees is half of 45. So again, let's call this point G just for the fun of it, right? And what I have now is I want to cut 45 in half. So I have this imaginary line that I'm drawing from the 45 mark, which I'm labeling as G, down to 0. And that's the line I want to bisect to go from A and cut through to create that 22.5 degree angle. So again, I set my compass up. I'm just going to start from G, right? So my compass point is on G, and I want to set up some reasonable radius, typically about 3/4 of the length between the line I want to bisect, right? Or the angle I want to bisect. The length of this angle is right there, G to C. I want to go 3/4 of that distance through there, and then from G, I want to swing an arc, and then I move over, and from C, I swing an arc. So I just bisected from 45 to 0. I cut those 2 points in half. So now, when I take my straight edge, and I go from my A point and draw through that, that will give me a perfect 22.5 degree angle. Right? So now, let's do a couple other things here. I'm just going to clarify this drawing a little bit. So I'm going to take this one away, and I'm still going to start with that 30 and 60 that are there. Okay? Just that trisection mark that we have. So here's the 30 and 60. Okay? And this time I want to construct a 15-degree angle. Right? So to construct a 15-degree angle, what I need to do is I now need to bisect 30. Right? So again, let's call this point here, what did we have on the last one? We had it on G, I think. So let's call this point H. So what I want to do now is I want to bisect between 0 and 30. So again, if it helps, think of this imaginary line between 0 and 30. And I want to cut that line in half. I want to bisect that line. So now we just set up our compass. want to set a radius that's about 3/4 of the distance that I'm trying to bisect. So I'm bisecting from here to 30, or in this case C to H. So I set my compass up at C and I go about 3/4 of the distance. And then I draw an arc from C. And then I set the compass point on H. And I draw another arc that cuts through that first one. So now I've cut this 30 degree in half at that point, with all these points converging on A. Right? You notice they all converge here. So now what I want to do to get this 15-degree angle is I'm going to set up on A and cut through that point, which creates me a perfect 15-degree angle because I cut the 30 in half. Right? Now, let's say, for example, we wanted to create a 75-degree angle. Well, there's two ways we could go about doing this at this point. Because now that we've constructed some other angles, if I want to do a 75-degree angle here, well, I know that 75 is halfway between 90 and 60, right? Right in the middle there. If I minus 15 from 90, I get 75. If I add 15 to 60, I get 75. So 75 is right in between 60 and 90, which means I could bisect between 60 and 90 and get a 75-degree angle. Another way I can do it, I'm going to try this one in orange, see if it works. Another way I could do this is I already have a 15-degree angle set about on a circle or an arc. So if I take my compass from C and I set up a radius to that 15 degrees, so I set up that exact distance along this arc that I have. I set up the distance from C to that 15-degree mark. Just gotta shrink it up just a little tiny bit there. So now I have this mark set. So from C, it's really tiny, so it's a little more difficult to actually use the compass, but from C, I now have that distance set, which is 15 degrees off of C. So now all I need to do is from D here, or the 60 degrees, I just want to add that 15 degrees to it. So I took the 15 from down here, right? Because this green line here is 15 degrees. And then about this circle, I set the compass radius to hit that 15 degrees from 0 to 15. Basically what I'm doing is I'm copying that angle. Then about the same circle, if I go up and hit point D, and then I scribe that arc from D, that's adding now 15 degrees to the 60. The other thing is I could also go from the 90 and subtract 15, and you see it's going to hit at the same point. Okay? I could subtract 15 from 90, or I could add 15 to 60 and still get me that 75-degree angle. So now if I set my straight edge up and I connect through that point, this gives me a perfect 75-degree angle. And don't forget, I could have bisected this point here and this point here. Could have bisected that and got the same results. But because I already had the 15 from here to here, I just decided to copy that angle and add it to the 60, which gave me 75.